Hey everybody, what's going on? Alan here. Welcome to the Gibson Garage Speed Shop. Today we're working on this 02, I think it is, F250. It's at an 8-lug Super Duty, and we're just going to be changing the pads on it. And the first thing you're going to want to do is get it up in the air with something real strong. I've got a 3-ton jack, which is good enough to lift up just one end of it at a time. And then I got the 6-ton jack stands under there. Sitting on the axle housing, so don't want it too high up in the air though, because those big heavy rims and tires, they gotta be put back on eventually. So that's step one, is making sure it's nice and safely up in the air with some heavy duty stuff. Then of course take the rims and tires off. Instead of lowering it back down on the ground, if you got a ramp, shove that under it, or maybe a wheel chock if you got that. Oops. Now turn the wheel so I can get leverage on it. These are 17. Okay. Watch the knuckle busting. But it is easier with leverage. Now luckily Ford was nice enough to supply us with a shelf, but first I need to spread these pads apart. Ooh, and they are worn down. You can just put your screwdriver right in the middle of the rotor and pry on the caliper. See it? Little by little. Then later we'll use one of the old pads. Oh, wow. Thank goodness. I think that's just a dust boot, but dang. Okay, pay attention to these clips, how they're facing. They look like boobies with nipples pointing towards each other. Yeah, I'm a dude. And then these will slide out easy enough. Worn down to the nub. And pull the old hardware out. Make sure yours comes with it before you even bother doing this. Otherwise you just be putting it back in there. Don't tell me I gotta take. Oh, okay. Now, there's a couple things you want to check when you get to this point to try and diagnose some problems maybe you didn't know you had. The first is condition of the rotor. Now, if you feeling a bunch of grooves like this one, it's definitely got I mean, it's not too bad. There's not one groove bigger than the other. You'd probably want to get these turned or just replaced. But in our case, we're going to rock them. Another thing is the wear on the brake pads themselves. You want to make sure that they're wearing evenly, which these are wearing evenly enough. If they're wearing massively unevenly, then it could most likely just mean you've got bad hardware, some junk built up in here over time. You want to clean that out. Fresh hardware, fresh anti-seize lube, and lube inside these pins too. Make sure these are sliding nicely, which these are both really sliding very smoothly. That one could use an extra dab. It's not metal on metal, but it feels a little loosey-goosey. That one feels real nice. So just stuff like that. And then the caliper, you want to inspect the dust boots. Maybe if when I push these pistons back in, it'll pop that boot back in. We'll be okay there. Clean the surfaces off here and there, and put some fresh anti-seize on there, or brake lube, whatever you got, because that'll help keep the squeaks away after you put it all back together. Now you could use brake clean, and you just get your old brake box, put it on the underneath this and spray away, right? But I don't have any for some reason. I thought I did, but I don't. So I'm just gonna rub this brush all over it, spray it out with the air hose so it's all up in my lungs instead. Now I got a fresh box of bag of hardware, so we'll slap those in. And they are different. They're not all the same kind, so match them up to what you got here on the ground. Like I've got mine laid out on the ground here to help remind me top and bottom and which way they're facing, which means, let's see, that's a bottom one. Okay. Hey, bingo. Okay. Take a little bit of this without getting it on the rotor. And just put a tiny bit. It only takes tiny bits. Since I got it in my hand, put some there, and over there. Not on the pistons yet because I haven't squeezed those in. Ooh, we went and got some ceramics. Now I'm going to use this lug nut here on the bottom. No, I'm not, because it won't reach. But if you've got a lug nut, or maybe like a big bolt and then a lug nut, I got one of those. Now, these brake pads look like they're exactly the same, so I don't think you have to worry about that, about mixing them up. Now we gotta squish the calipers in. Ooh, original Ford. Don't forget these springs. I can already foresee a problem, maybe. Oh, okay, not that bad. I was worried it'd push the pads back out while I'm trying to get the caliper on, but I think we'll be okay. Remember, boobies with nipples facing each other. It did, it's pushing them out. Stop it, you. Grab the old brake pad that whirs up against the pistons, and you're gonna need a 6-inch C-clamp. Don't let the ladies lie to you. You can't do nothing less. You can't do anything with anything less than 6 inches. Also want to double check the reservoir. Over time, people will top off the reservoir as this gets low, and then you squeeze them in and the reservoir overflows or pops the lid off. Now in my case, I think I got plenty of room. You can see the max line right here. So we'll just loosen the cap to let the air come up, and we'll see where that's at when we're done. Back to the caliper. Just start squeezing them in. It should go pretty simply if everything is as it should be. Going further than you need to. There we go. Dust cover's popped back into place. It's not ripped, it still feels nice and supple. Now we can put some of that anti-seize on the pistons here. Just a little dab will do you. That's a huge dab. And just make sure you didn't get this twisted the wrong way, which I did. There we go. And I did not squeeze these in far enough. Squeeze them together with your hands. There we go. goodness. And these caliper slide pins need to be rotated just right. Flat side's got to be there like that. Here you can see the flat edge is in there. And just tighten them down, and this side's done. The torque on these is just, it's going to be a lot. There we go. Just before stripping. There we go. Remove this. Clean up your mess. Another thing I could have mentioned, if you did want to do rotors, it's still just super simple because these are floating. There's no extra hardware, well, in the front. You don't have to take any part of the hub apart. After you pulled this caliper off with these slide pin bolts, you would then remove these two larger bolts to take the caliper bracket off. Then it slides off, new one slides on, caliper bracket back on with these two larger bolts down here and up here. Then the rest is the same as I showed you before. Let's see if we can get this heavy beast back on there. Now I like to sit down actually and just use my legs. Just like that. Now, these are aluminum rims, and with any aluminum rim you want to work these lug nuts in slowly to seat all these properly. You don't want to just send the impact wrench on the first lug nut and you're going to gouge the aluminum rim, make it not round anymore. Just keep wiggling until you get a couple of them like ran down nicely. There we go. Now we can just give them all a nice little cinch, and then when we set it down, we'll torque them. And by torque, I mean tighten them as hard as I can with my own arms with this thing. Now on the other side, I get to work in the shade. Yeah. Oh, brother. This one's dropping metal shavings. That was all metal shavings that just fell out of there. Wow. It's not supposed to slide out like that in that direction. Alright, so we're gonna bust this caliper bracket off, pull the rotor off, take it in to see if there's enough thickness to get turned. That's a 21 for that guy. Oh my. That made me fart. Wow, that's insanely tight. Goodness, dude, you better eat your effing Wheaties. These guys still feel good. Alright, so I called up the oh no, I need auto parts. And they told me the minimum thickness is 1.417, which is basically 1.5. We're gonna just get a new one. Alright, got the new rotor, and you're definitely going to want to get some brake clean, or if you have rubbing alcohol like me, you can do that. And I measured the thickness of this guy, and what's crazy is that these aren't even 1.5 inches to begin with, when O'Reilly says minimum thickness is 1.417. So there is no room for give on this thing. No room at all. So I don't even see how you can turn it, even when it's brand new. Check this out. We are dead on 1.5. Let me try using the mark here. Yeah, we're dead on 1.5 inches, and minimum thickness is 1.4. So, not likely you'll have an opportunity to turn these. You'll probably just have to replace them. And I was wrong about the price. If I mentioned it earlier, it's not 35 bucks. These are 125 bucks. Yikes. Don't want to set it back down in the grease. And this one is printed 36 millimeter, which is 1.147, 1.417, almost 1.5 inches. You got the roofers over there peeling nails out of the roof. It's got my dog going off. Thinks it's some other dog squeaking or yelping or something. Just torque on these is all of it, all the torque. And we put the hardware in, keeping in mind how they came out. Okay, this time before touching the anti-seize, I'm gonna squeeze these in again with the old pad here. There we go. Sure you clean all these surfaces up pretty good. Okay, now it's time for some lube. Just a little touch that we can smear around with our finger here. A little boop and boop and boop. Don't get any on the rotor here. If you do touch the rotor, get some more of that brake clean or alcohol, wipe it off, no big deal. You gotta make sure you get it all off your hands, because this stuff, it's weird, it spreads crazy. You don't even know how. You think you got it all, and then you look down and your hands are just covered. Like, well, how did it get there? Alright, pad number 1. Pad number 2. And don't forget your booby clips. That's why I said booby trap. Make sure the caliper's going on correctly, not with a twisted brake line. Oh my gosh, thank you. Again, make sure the flat edges are sitting correctly against those perches. Clean up all that old Loctite. Again, don't try to lift this with your back. Use my legs. Moving the tire around helps move the weight so you can better seat these guys. Okay, it's not wobbling on the studs anymore. We can get the rest of them on. All right, guys, well, that's gonna do it. Here's a look at the brake reservoir. You can see that we're almost all the way back up to the max line now, just because of spreading those calipers back apart with some fresh pads. So there you go. But until next time, please leave a comment below, subscribe, leave or like, hit the bell, all that good stuff, and peace.